looking at the transfer portal, NIL, and what's like the major differences coaching in this era versus coaching 5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, just even look at like the last 3 years of college football. Like, there's always been change in college football, right? But the change we've gone through has been pretty remarkable. And we got more change to go, right? We're talking about revenue sharing. We're talking about changing portal windows. I think one of the things for us that was extremely challenging this year, the whole month of December, while we were in the college football playoffs, it was essentially free agency in college football.
Man, so I came to
every player on our roster is a free agent. Every player on our team could have went in that portal, and we had 9 guys go in at that time. Then the portal closed. Then, because we played beyond the portal closing, after January 10th, our players were exempt to. They got 5 more days to go in the portal, which then we were only 4 teams left. So 130 other teams are staring at our roster.
Oh my God.
And so you talk about like retention with your own players. That's the first thing that comes to mind when I think of portal, is making sure we keep the right players on our team. The second part is, for us, when we deal with the portal, we're about filling needs. Like I touched on earlier, I'm about building our roster from the ground up and bringing in high school kids, developing them on our program, getting them engulfed in our culture, into our schemes. But yet, the portal has provided an opportunity to, when you do have attrition at a specific position, it's called defensive line, because of graduation, because of transfers of our own right, because of injuries, because of maybe we just missed the mark on a kid and didn't recruit the right kid at the right time, that you have the opportunity to fill those voids. And we've done it 2 years in a row at that position in particular, right? Where we've brought in some veteran players that have been helpful for us there, but we really don't major there. And again, I think NIL has been good for the University of Texas. I'm not going to sit up here and say that it hasn't. It's been good to us. It's been good to a lot of programs. I think that we've managed it the right way. I think we're fair with our players. I think when we think a guy is overpriced, we let him go, whether they're our own or whether it's another guy that maybe we're competing with another school with. Like, we look at the value of the player on our roster and where he might sit, and then we put a number on it, and it is what it is, and it's definitely an NFL model and approach that we have. But that's forever changing, right? And we'll see where this whole thing lands. But again, I think NIL has been good for the University of Texas. For a long time, NIL may have existed, just not at the University of Texas.
Right,
but now that when they regulated it, and the fact that we got a seat at the table to compete at that level for some of the high level players, it's been good to us, and we try to maximize it, take advantage of it within the scope of the rules. And like I said, I think we've benefited from it.
Well, I think it's an advantage for us too, in that you were in the NFL and you were successful in the NFL, and you saw how a salary cap was managed. You saw how a team was built, and that's trickled down into college football now. You got to have some idea of how that works on that level. This is a different space, but how we can navigate all those things. There's not a whole lot of coaches across the country who have been able to see both worlds.
Well, it's been helpful. I was surrounded by some really good people when I was in the NFL. I was with Dan Quinn. Raheem Morris was on that staff as well.
Love Raheem.
Raheem was a great coach. Thomas Dimitroff was the GM. I've become really good friends with Howie Roseman with the Eagles. And why can the Eagles have all those great players, and why can they pay Saquon Barkley what they paid him this offseason, and have already paid Jalen Hurts, and they're paying Jalen Carter, and they're paying Devontae Smith, and they're paying AJ Brown. Their salary cap's the same as everybody else's. Yeah. But you gotta manage it, and you gotta place a premium on certain things that matter to you as a program, and that's what we've tried to do. And we've tried to really assess that year in and year out of what they do, and how does Kansas City do it every year, right? How are they doing it every single year and remake themselves and rebrand themselves year after year? How does Sean McVay do it in LA? How's Kyle Shanahan doing that in San Francisco? Although they had a down year this year, how do they do it year after year? How did Belichick do it in New England year after year? And so when you study those guys, I don't want to say there's a science to it, but there's mechanisms that you can do as long as you know who you are. I feel like so many teams struggle when they don't know and they're just grab bagging. And then they're reactionary instead of forward thinking. And we try to be forward thinking to make sure that we got the right nucleus of people in an organization. And the old adage is simple, right? Never sacrifice character for talent. There's a lot of talented players, But if you believe in culture, you got to make sure that you look at the character too.